It's a major heartbreak for Michael McDowell today as Joey Logano steals the Texas Cup Series win today at Texas. Let's break down all the action. Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Hope y'all are doing well. The checkered flag just flew at Texas Motor Speedway. We've got all the recap from today's Cup Series action. If you're new here, though, hit that subscribe button. We are always talking NASCAR and racing on a daily basis. All the Xfinity coverage from yesterday's channel is posted if you missed that from Kyle Larson bushwhacking his way to the win, although he had to earn it, so go check that out if you missed it. But it's all about Cup Series Sunday today. Not IndyCar, not F1 down in the American Monaco of Miami with the fake yacht parking lot. No, we're at good old-fashioned Texas, Fort Worth style at the Oval. And today, everyone's fan favorite Joey Logano takes the checkered flag. Well, no, maybe not everyone. He did get quite a few boos, and he's, just not very well regarded as far as NASCAR fans. But he's inevitable. The 2024 Cup Series winner gets his first win since that championship clincher in Phoenix back in November. It's his 37th win in his career, passing Brad Keselowski on the all-time wins list. So congrats to Joey Logano, locking himself into the playoffs. And in dramatic fashion, it was the way he passed to Michael McDowell late with 5 laps to go, I believe, just the way he sent it onto the backstretch low. And Michael McDowell said, I'm going to block. Both those guys were refusing to lift, but Logano just had the faster car and had the moment. If he didn't pass him there, I don't think he would have been able to get to him unless there was another caution, which there was, and Logano did have to hold off Ryan Blaney as well once Michael McDowell crashed out. Listen, we'll get to all of that, but for Logano, again, he was just able to put himself in position to be there at the end. Credit to him and crew chief Paul Wolfe, because this race, it sort of felt like a super speedway style race from stage 3 halfway on. You could really mark a line in the sand from this being a traditional oval race before the Jesse Love caution, right in the middle of the pit cycle, and after the Jesse Love spin. So, again, for Joey Logano, the fact that he was able to survive the race, he wasn't one of the fastest cars, but where was Kyle Larson? Where was Tyler Reddick? Where was Michael McDowell or Ryan Blaney? They were all behind him at one point in the final last few laps. So fans may not like it, but Joey Logano is inevitable, and he will be competing now officially for a championship come August as the Cup Series 10-race playoff format begins. And oh, goodness gracious, God forbid he makes it into that championship for at Phoenix. God forbid any of those Penske Fords, or even Josh Berry for that matter, make it into that championship for, because they've got that speed at Phoenix, we know. I talked about the Jesse Love spin, how that was kind of the line in the sand for the race there, how it all changed. Let's talk about all the chaos that ensued after, because there was 12 cautions for events in today's race, most of them coming afterwards there, and it just seemed like that was where all the actual racing, or at least the action was. Even though, before that caution, it was Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, and Chris Buescher before he blew a tire late in stage 2. Those were the guys that were the class of the field, really out in front, trying to pass each other, even though they were kind of strung out single file once against each other. Once that caution happened, Michael McDowell took 2 tires. They took a gamble, and it worked. They were able to make it last, and then he ended up beating Kyle Larson straight up on a restart that sent Kyle Larson back to, I think, 4th or 5th. Once Larson didn't have that clean air at Texas, his car was not able to fire off the same way, and that car that was arguably the most dominant car all day was useless for the last 30 laps or so, as Michael McDowell and Ryan Blaney and then Joey Logano were the ones battling it out there late. Credit to Michael McDowell and that Spire team for swinging for the fences. They're in a win and you're in situation. They have to win. They're not going to point themselves into the playoffs this year. And you saw him wreck going for it late in the race. He hit the wall in the backstretch, chasing down Joey Logano, and once Ryan Blaney was hunting him down as well. But you heard McDowell say, I'm sorry, guys, I had to go for it there. That's the position they're in. They're not going to be in opportunities where they're racing for wins late in the race often. So you hate to see a wrecked race car for that 71 team, but I think they'll take the speed they had and the opportunity and the position they're in, because at the end of the day, he did all he could to try and win this race against Joey Logano, and then trying to hold off Ryan Blaney for P2. Can't be mad at Michael McDowell. A very good run overall for Spire this weekend, with Carson Hocevar on pole, getting 2 cars in the top 5 for qualifying. Hocevar, of course, wrecking late with Ryan Preece. We'll get to that incident, but I think it was overall a positive for a young, financially strapped or financially flush team with cash that's coming in the last few years with Spire. That's a weekend they can hopefully build on. Also, that Fox finally learning, I guess, from the Truck Series on Friday night. They did pull up the ghost car when the caution came out, when it was Ryan Blaney and Michael McDowell nose to nose on one of those final restarts there. I guess they did hear the fans, but I hate seeing these races come down to millimeter reviews there and having to use ghost cars just to see it. But I guess that is just where we are on the times. You do want it to be accurate, but I just hate that we have to wait on these scoring loop reviews. It seems like it's coming more and more often, almost every single week in one of the NASCAR series. But McDowell's strategy showed that tire wear or lack thereof today was really just the part of the story that really showed that track position was the main key. If you could get track position, you could, for the most part, hold off your competition if you had at least 2 tires for the most part today. That seemed to be the case. It was a very straightforward race for Texas. There was kind of a second groove there, but it was all about controlling the air on the car behind you, which, yeah, it's what Texas has been since the reconfiguration, whether you like it or not. And the other incidents that were part of the race today, it wasn't the grass that really caused the incidents like the Xfinity race. Part of the reconfiguration with Texas in 2017 was a small bump that was added in the middle part of turn 4, and that had 2 victims today. Early on in the race leader Josh Berry, who showed great pace, holding off both Kyle Larson and Carson Hocevar. Berry was leading, clean air, was about to do a green flag pit cycle, and then hit that bump and spun, took out the back of his car. The 21 Wood Brothers car was wrecked for the day. He ended up coming back out 80-something laps down, but hate to see that. And then Kyle Busch in stage 3 after one of the restarts, running P3, looking like he finally might be able to break through after turning 40 this week. This whole rowdy persona he's talked about in the past, how he wants to show that his son, that he can still be this dominant force that everyone talks about in the past in NASCAR. And then he hits that bump and spins, and he gets ultimately caught up in another incident with Brad Keselowski and Austin Cindric late. But Kyle Busch, just another incident that seems like anything that can go wrong will for him, no matter what is going on. He was able to work his way back to P3, but frustrating nonetheless. But that bump in turn 3, that reconfiguration, I know NASCAR and the reconfiguration team at Texas got what they wanted with chaos, but 12 cautions today. You have the grass incident in the Xfinity Series, and historically the last few years at every level. What was this reconfigure really all for? Just makes me scratch my head, I guess. Also, Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace, AJ Allmendinger, Noah Gragson all having an incident in stage 2 where Joey Logano was pushing Bubba Wallace on the backstretch, kind of got into him and sent him around and took out a couple of cars there. It was very, very just weird to see these big incidents, especially on the backstretch for today at Texas. I know it's a very narrow track, but a lot of good cars got caught up in it. Like I said at the beginning today, it felt almost like a super speedway race where it was just a war of attrition. Could you survive and just get your car to the end there? And then you had in stage 3, Carson Hocevar versus Ryan Preece. Now, Carson Hocevar, it's been talked about, of course, how he was on pole this weekend. The youngest driver to get pole at Texas in the Cup Series history, in the 48 races in the track's history. And he's, of course, noted how fast he is, but he's also noted how many times he has incidents, crashes. He doesn't bring the car home in one piece. And this was just another incident where, coming out of turn 2, took Ryan Preece up into the wall. They both take each other out. Hocevar actually gets a little air there. And Preece obviously frustrated after the race, saying Hocevar just, it's par for the course there. For Carson Hocevar, you gotta bring the car home in one piece. It's such a great weekend building off of that. But all you have is another wrecked race car. He's the same spot with Michael McDowell, where they're not in a position where they need to point themselves in. They're going to have to win to get into the playoffs. But for Carson Hocevar, it's the lap time. It's the experience. It's the same thing for Jesse Love today, where he needs to get the seat time. It's not about actually racing for a win. It's about getting those laps in. Carson Hocevar is in a different boat, but he needs to finish these races. He needs to get those stage 3 restarts and see what the track looks like late in the race, because these restarts at the end are a lot more squirrely than just in the middle of stage 1 and 2. And he hasn't been there for a lot of these races because he's had a wrecked race car. So frustrating to see that again for him, but he's got the speed, just needs to rein it in there or figure it out a little bit there and not have the car end up on the hauler at the end of these races. But again, for Spire Motorsports, I did say it, this is a weekend that they need to build off of moving forward. Before we wrap up, here's some results, though, that we didn't talk about. Ross Chastain somehow found a way to find himself finishing second today. Trackhouse overall needed that because they just seemed to not have the speed that we expected them coming into the season. And Daniel Suarez, his teammate, his amigo, finishing in the top 10 as well, P10. And then as far as teammates, Legacy Motor Club, John Hunter Nemechek and Eric Jones, both top 10 results. Jones in 5th, Nemechek in 8th. Really, their intermediate track has been their strengths this year. And for Legacy Motor Club, how bad it's been the last few years, it's nice to see them rebounding, at least starting to trend up. I know anything is better than last year, but again, 2 top 10 results for guys that really, Eric Jones showed speed late. Those top 5 cars really were the ones that broke away up until the last few cautions. Eric Jones was a part of that group, so big for Legacy. Ricky Stenhouse in 6th, Austin Dillon in 7th. No Kyle Busch in the top 10, but showing that RCR alliance with Trackhouse, they had speed this weekend for sure. Ricky Stenhouse, though, top 6. That's really big for the 47 team. And the Hayek Motorsports, not JTD, it's Hayek Motorsports now. Again, that alliance that seems like all those cars had speed this weekend. Shout out to the Todd father, Todd Gill in 11th place. Not bad, my friend. Not bad. We like to see that. And Ty Dillon, 12th place. It seems like Colleague Racing, I know a lot's been talked about already, their resurgence this year, but Ty Dillon, 12th place. He really has done a lot better than I think a lot of people, myself included, thought he would coming into this season. Just getting that car home in one piece and finishing on the lead lap. If you find yourself at 12th place with all these restarts at the end, congrats to Ty Dillon. Almost had it again last week at Talladega before running out of fuel on the last lap. Colleague is trending back in the right direction finally. One guy I didn't talk about, Denny Hamlin, finishing last place in 38th, catching fire in the first stage there. His car having some sort of mechanical issue where either the oil pan or something in the engine blew up, and ultimately fire coming from that 11 car. They're going to need Progressive and Flow onto this one, and his car looking more like his backyard a few months ago. If you know, you know. But just seems like Joe Gibbs Racing was just off the mark. Christopher Bell finishing in the top 10. Ty Gibbs had speed in the top 10, and then that Jesse Love caution midway through his pit cycle ruined his day. He was running 4th, but otherwise, you had Trace Briscoe get caught in an incident. He was just limping around the track today. Not a great day for Joe Gibbs overall. But what was probably the highlight of the day was the national anthem from Don Graves, a Marine veteran, singing the national anthem for the Texas crowd. It was probably the biggest cheer we got all day at the track, all weekend, maybe all year at the track. It was a great scene. I love seeing NASCAR activate. That's one thing NASCAR does great, is their activation with the military, showing how their service members mean so much to the country and the community. And I love to see that national anthem. That was a very, very cool moment. So whoever was behind that, whether it was Texas Motor Speedway, NASCAR, that was one of the coolest moments we'll see all season. That was very, very awesome to see. But overall, exactly what we thought we'd get at Texas. I think turned a little bit more carnage than Talladega. Maybe not what we'd expect, but overall, yeah, I got nothing else for you. Let me know what you thought down below about today's race, this weekend's overall racing at Texas. And if you liked what you saw today, make sure to like this video at Breaking Bob. Subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton. I'm always talking racing here. We'll be here for the news cycle. Of course, the NASCAR cycle never stops. I'm sure Chipper Jones was not thrilled about Joe Logano winning today after his comments the last week, but that's the NASCAR world. Always something, and I'm sure there'll be more this week to discuss. But stay tuned for more, folks. I do appreciate you watching. See you next time.